Hello and welcome to Fortreal TV. My name is Raymond Ijoma and I'm a real estate entrepreneur as well as a property lawyer here in Nigeria. In this video that is brought to you by Fortreal Limited, I'm going to be having a very important conversation with you, and it is about 21 legal mistakes that every realtor, every real estate agent, every developer, real estate company must avoid when serving clients, when doing the business of real estate in Nigeria. The number of mistakes that we get to see every day. Like I said a moment ago, I am a lawyer with a niche in property law. Having worked with the principal with over 30 years experience at the Nigerian bar and then practicing law actively myself, particularly as it relates to real estate transactions, property litigation, and real estate generally, I've come to realize that there are a lot of cases in court that shouldn't actually be there if the right things were done. I've also discovered that there are certain cases that are lost in court that ordinarily shouldn't be lost, and that's simply because the right things were not done. And as someone who had to resign from active litigation to come into the heart of real estate itself, I've discovered that there are two sets of people that play a major role, or that can play a major role in reducing all of the real estate scams in Nigeria, all of the real estate issues and everything that can amount to a client losing client. I've realized that there are two major sets of people that can help to resolve that problem. Number one, realtors, real estate agents, realtors and real estate agents. Number two are those who get to sell the land. And particularly, I'm going to visit my focus in talking to developers. Right. So in this new age of real estate in Nigeria, where there are a lot of developers and realtors who get to package themselves and package their businesses to serve clients, I realize that it's a good trend. However, something is missing, which is the basic understanding of Nigerian property law. If the basic Nigerian property laws are understood by these two sets of people, realtors, real estate agents, and developers, I completely know that there will be a major shift in the real estate sector in Nigeria, especially as it relates to reducing scams and real estate issues. So yes, in this video, I am going to be discussing these 21 legal mistakes. Of course, there are more, but I'm going to focus on these 21 mistakes that you should not make as a realtor, and then of course as a developer. But mainly my emphasis is to realtors and real estate agents in this particular video. So if you're a realtor that is not just out to be a salesperson or just earn your commission and move on, then you need to watch this video to the very end, because the information you're going to get in this video have the capacity to help you to avoid trouble, sell better, be an authority in the business, position you properly as a brand in the business, and importantly, help you to keep a good reputation sustainably in the business. And just in case your subconscious is rather focused or distracted by, come on, who is this guy? Then you can, of course, after watching this video, check me out on Amazon, where I have my books published, Seller also, where I have most of my digital materials. You can also check me out on other social media platforms. Then, of course, you can go through the amazing value-added videos on this YouTube channel. And the very first legal mistake you should never make as a realtor is not understanding basic Nigerian property or land laws. And let me explain. I'm also going to be very brief with most of this conversation. And let me start by saying that every medical practitioner is made to study medical laws in the university. And every accountant is also made to study accounting laws. This is the same for most professional courses. I remember very clearly as a law student that we had students who had to come to our faculties to learn alongside with us. I remember very clearly international law. We had to study that with a lot of with other students from other departments. I also remember that I particularly had to study some other courses that are relevant to my field or practice, or the practice of law. So it basically means that essentially law is an integral element of every human endeavor. So if you want to truly be a good medical practitioner, it is important that you understand medical law so that you know when to draw the lines and stay away from trouble. If you have to be certified as an accountant, there are also certain laws that you must be aware of for you to play the game right and be professional at what you do. But it is rather unfortunate that in our society where the real estate sector is largely unregulated, you'd find out that everyone and anyone can just wake up and say, oh, I'm now a realtor, with no training, no basic training, and even an understanding of property law. As someone who has been in the business and who gets to represent clients in the purchase of properties and all of that, I have seen a number of times. I've met realtors who don't know jack about what a title document is. And you already know that a title document is an integral element of every real estate transaction. You can't be talking about how good the property is without having an understanding of what the title of the property is. I get to meet realtors who tell you that the company is going to apply and sign a CFO. I get to meet realtors who tell you that a survey plan is the title document on the land. Even developers who get to tell you that a freehold is a title document, and the other title on the land is a registered survey. So you generally get to meet a lot of funny incidents and things generally that just happen in the real estate sector, and you begin to wonder if these people know jack about the business. So I'm basically using that to say that the business of real estate is one that cannot exist without law. And frankly speaking, property law is a major course, it's a compulsory course for us who study law. Now let me make you understand it a bit further. There are different categories of law. There's marine law. We basically didn't even have an idea. In fact, there was not even a definition of marine law to us at the university or at the law school. But there are certain other laws that are extremely important. For instance, criminal law, that was mandatory. Property law, land law, that was mandatory. And it was mandatory for a reason. International law wasn't mandatory. So that clearly tells you that property law is a major area of law that is critical to the business of real estate. You already know that real estate is a sector that affects every human being, whether you are rich or you are poor or whatever status that you hold in society. So understanding property law as a realtor is critical to your success in the business of real estate. I like to always use this example to explain it. So when you want to buy a car, you don't buy a car because the body is fine, or you don't buy a car just because the body is fine. Another important critical element of a car is the engine. Except you just want to buy the body of the car, you won't need it. Because without the engine, the car is useless. The car cannot serve or fulfill its purpose. In the same vein, you don't just buy a property because the property is in a good location, because it's in a good environment, or it has good amenities. You must also be concerned or look out for the title of the land. And as I will always say, a property is good if it is in a good location and has the basic amenities that you will need, and then of course also has a good title. So if it doesn't have a good title, then it's not good enough. If it has a good title and it's in a bad location or bad environment or doesn't have the basic amenities that you need, then of course it's not good enough, except if you can manage it. But importantly, the issue of title is very important because it affects the sustainability of that property, except you just want to waste your money. And I believe that's not the case. I'm saying all of this to say that understanding property law as a realtor will definitely stand you out, will help you in the business, because you don't want to sell a property that has legal issues. And if you don't understand basic Nigerian property law, then you will never be able to see those property issues, or those legal issues rather. And trust me, all you need is understanding it. You will know, you will get to see the legal issues. Because if all the realtors, or most realtors that we know, get to understand basic property law and say, oh, this property is not good to go into the market, if all realtors or most realtors have avoided, then developers will be put in check and clients wouldn't have to buy such properties. Because 8 out of 10 real estate transactions, there's definitely a realtor or a real estate agent involved in the transaction. So if the real estate agents or realtors understand basic property law, then they can help to reduce the issues in the business, and of course prevent the trouble that can also come to them by virtue of selling the wrong product. So yes, the very first issue, legal issue or mistake that you should avoid as a realtor is not understanding basic property law. I may not be able to go so much into details just like I did for all the other legal mistakes, so that this video won't end up becoming a 1-hour video. So the second legal mistake you should avoid as a realtor is not understanding the difference between kinds of title and types of title document. Kinds of title and types of title document. And in fact, before you even talk about understanding kinds of title and types of title document, you already should understand what a title document is. I just gave us an example that a lot of realtors don't even know what a title document is. They don't know what's a title document and what is not a title document. So you need to, as a realtor, understand the different types of titles or title documents, and of course, understanding kinds of title, because when you're able to establish this and see the differences in all of this, it is easier for you to know the right product to even sell, and of course, know the value to attach to the product, or know if the product itself, that is the real estate or the land, the property, is worthless and useless. I've had instances where a property in a good location was unable to be sold or could not be sold because the title was very bad. I remember one very vividly. That was the first time of me seeing or experiencing that kind of thing. That was when I was still in active courtroom practice. For that particular transaction, the property was in GRA, very good location, but for some reason the documents were missing and there was no trace to any existing title document on the land. There was no proof of any sort. And I mean, all the realtors tried their best and all of that, but there was no way it could be sold, because nobody wants to buy a property that doesn't have a title document, you know. And at the end of the day, the property was there for several years. And somehow my boss, my principal at the time, had to come into the transaction, and by the experience he had had, like I said, he's been into practice for several years, and by the experience he had he had to build up, create documents here and there that helps to fix the situation, and the property was sold in a few months. Right. In fact, the realtor, the agent that was in charge of the sale of the property, had to come specially to appreciate my principal. The truth about it is, nobody would have wanted to buy that property without that title document. So basically speaking, the issue of title is critical, and every realtor must know it. Else, it becomes a very big legal issue or mistake that can lead you into a lot of issues. Number 3, prioritizing the location of the land as against the title document. Let me advise you, the goodness of a location, the beauty of an environment, the very sweet amenities that are in that location are not more important than the issue of title. The issue of title as well is not more important than your need as it relates to the location and all of that. So every realtor must learn to treat the issue of title just as important as they treat the issue of the location or the amenities or the environment where the property is. So if you are the guy who is buying, always ensure that you understand and these two elements are looked at the same level, so that it is indeed good enough. So never you prioritize the issue of location over title, and never prioritize title over the issue of location. Number 4, misrepresentation. Misrepresentation is basically inducing someone to do something that he or she will ordinarily not want to do, especially if the facts were clear to him or her. A lot of realtors find themselves, I would like to say that there are 2 types of misrepresentation. One that is deliberate, and the other one that is based on ignorance. So except you are fraudulent, a fraudulent person, most of the misrepresentation that you are going to carry out are such that are due to ignorance. And the ignorance that you are going to have to be a victim of are most of the time based on ignorance of the law. And the issue of misrepresentation is a serious one. So if you don't get it right, a client that is litigious, a client that doesn't take nonsense, can enforce what you have misrepresented, and that will be an issue for you as a realtor. So you need to understand basic property law, Nigerian property law, so that you don't fall victim of misrepresentation based on ignorance of the law. Number 5, not knowing the title on the land. Not knowing the title on the land. I get to meet real estate agents who you get to ask, what's the title on the land? Some of them tell you they'll get back to you. Some of them just see whatever is most popular to them. They just say it's a deed. And at the end of the day, when you go further, you realize that there's even no deed. There's just a customary title and all of that. So as a realtor, it is extremely important that At every point in marketing any property or land, you must ensure that you know the title on the land. And of course, I already said that there are different types of title documents and title, right? So you need to know the title on the land so that you would properly communicate that to the client. In my opinion, it is a crime to real estate, in quotes, for you not to know the title on the land that you are marketing and selling as a realtor. It is extremely important. Number 6, marketing or selling properties with power of attorney as a title or leasehold interest without understanding the basic rules and exceptions. So first, as a realtor, you need to understand what a power of attorney is and when it is needed. It is not every time that somebody would bring in a power of attorney. There are times where you need it and there are times where you don't need it. And by law, as a realtor, you must understand that by strict law, a power of attorney in itself cannot serve or stand as a title document. While as a leasehold, you need to understand that a leasehold interest ordinarily, generally by strict law, cannot be used to sell a property. But of course, you and I agree that there are a lot of realtors or developers who get to sell properties with the power of attorney, a leasehold, deed of lease, sublease, and all of that. As a realtor, you need to look out for yourself. This is very important. You need to understand the rules in this area of law, leasehold, power of attorney, and ensure that you are not breaking a major rule. If not, in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 20 or 30 years time after the time frame of the leasehold expires, you might end up having a big issue on your table, and by that time you may have even forgotten about the transaction or how much you even earned as commission. So yes, for this issue there are the rules, the major rules, and very, very, very tiny circumstantial exceptions, and you need to understand it so that you do not get it wrong. And just before we continue, let me say that again, this video was brought to you by Fortreal Limited, and I recently designed a course. I call it the Realtors Law course. The Realtors Law course that is designed for realtors specifically. And in that course, there are 15 parts and episodes that explains and teaches you everything you need to know about basic Nigerian property law as a realtor. I poured my heart into this course. I poured my experience, my competence, the several transactions or experience I've gotten in several transactions across real estate into the course. And I bet you this course is not only an asset to you, it will help you to avoid trouble, it will help you to sell better, it will position you as an authority, because the more you know, the more you can serve your clients efficiently. And then importantly, also to help you to maintain or keep a good reputation as a realtor, because law is a critical aspect of every real estate transaction. So it means that as a realtor, you must understand basic Nigerian property law for you to truly stand out and be good at what you represent as a realtor. So please don't go yet. I'll give you more details about the course, and of course there are still other legal mistakes that you need to be aware of. Number 7 is marketing and selling properties for developers, companies, or entities that don't have the right to sell the properties. In law, generally about 4 entities that you can sell properties for. Number 1, a company, a real estate company, a developer. Number 2, a family. Number 3, a community, and then an individual. In all of these 4 entities, there are rules that bind them whenever they want to sell a property. There are rules legal rules you must obey. It's not just about come and sell, come and buy. There are legal rules that you must obey whenever you are marketing for a company, for a family, for a community, and for an individual. And you must look out for this before you put out any property owned by either of these entities for sale. Number 8, marketing and selling properties across Nigeria without knowing or not knowing that there are legal differences or jurisdictional differences in the Nigerian property law. Let me say that Nigerian property law is not one that is absolutely universal. So in certain areas, what is referred to as a title document cannot be considered as a title document in other areas. There are certain other areas that what can just go expressly definitely will never go expressly in some other location. So you need to understand all of these locations, especially if you're kind of realtor that that sells across Nigeria. If you're the one that basically focuses on one jurisdiction or one location, then that's okay. All you have to do is focus on the law that applies to your jurisdiction. But if you sometime get to represent your client, because of course your clients may decide to be interested in a practice in Enugu while you are resident in Lagos. Your clients can decide to want to look out for a property in Abuja while you're resident in Port Harcourt. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you can just throw off. So you can also still be able to represent those clients just by understanding these basic laws. So number 9, not knowing when to insist on a contract or sale. Not knowing when to insist on a contract or sale. There are certain times when a contract or sale becomes mandatory and very important. So you need to look out for that. Number 10, not knowing. I'll just be rushing through at this point. I believe the time is already fast spent. Number 10, not knowing the legal implication of offer and acceptance to real estate transactions. This is a very, very, very important one. This is a very, very important one. Now, you can just be making a call as a realtor and having conversations with clients as a developer and all of that, and not knowing that there are legal implications to that simple conversation that you think you are having. And when you meet a client that is out to enforce anything or that is litigious, you might end up being liable for damages. And sometimes they're not funny. I had the opportunity of indirectly consulting for a big real estate company in Lagos that was having that issue. And trust me, a lot of money was involved and a lot of money was at stake. But if they knew about what I'm just talking about, then they definitely would never have fallen trap of this. And there are exceptions, there are ways to do something that can help you to avoid, so that you can freely have any conversation that you are having as you want to have as a realtor or even a developer, and there won't be any legal implications. So you'll be able to escape the legal implication of the principle of offer and acceptance, right? So you would also need to know that as a realtor and not fall into any trap that is associated to it. So number 11, false advertising. This is almost similar to misrepresentation, but there are just a bit of differences here and there. It basically can also be based on deliberateness, being deliberate or out of ignorance. So you must be aware so that you are not guilty of either of them. Number 12, not being the first lawyer to your client. This in quotes may not be as a matter of law, but just as a matter of going the extra mile and branding yourself as the realtor that serves your client the best. I like to say that if 10 realtors put out the right properties, then it automatically means that clients will buy the right properties. But out of ignorance, you don't understand the law, you just put out whatever that is available or reachable to you for sale, and without even asking questions or understanding the legal implications of anything, then it means that you're putting out the best product in the market. So if you can be the first lawyer to your client by understanding basic property law, then it even help you sell better. It will reduce the decision-making process of your client, because already you have done basic background check, and when you just put that product to your clients, they can only want to choose not to buy if they don't have the money. But as it relates to the genuineness of the property, by virtue of the fact that you understand basic Nigerian property law, it basically would now be easier for you to sell to the client or reduce the decision-making process, because you have done the foundational work, right? So being the first lawyer to your client already helps you to sell better, stand out, and importantly, make better sales. I think that's it for me. Number 13, non-disclosure. Non-disclosure is basically deliberately hiding information from clients, and I would advise you not to do that by any means. Whatever you think necessary that the client should be aware of, do well to let the client know. That's number 13. Number 14, selling lands and properties with excision in process. This is very sensitive and mostly applies to people who are resident in Lagos. Now, the issue of excision in process is a popular one, and a lot of persons are falling victim of it every day. I would advise you as a realtor. As a matter of fact, the morning of recording this video, I had a conversation with a realtor from Lagos who was concerned about the issue, because he asked the question in a training she was attending about this and all that, because she's also a member of my realtors group where I get to train the realtors every week. So she knew this, or she learned this from the class, and she asked the question, and they said that in code, some of what they responded to her was that this is Lagos and all of that and all of that. Let me advise you for free. There are certain laws or principles in property law that are universal, no matter the location. Even if it's Sambisa Forest, the same basic property law applies. So there's nothing like this is Lagos or this is not Lagos. What is wrong to basic Nigerian property law is wrong no matter the location. So I would advise you to understand what a session is, a session in process is, and what a gazette is, so that you don't fall victim. Let me say it. A number of developers are out for the money, are out for their money. So it is your responsibility, in my opinion, for you to look out for your clients, yourself, and your clients that you are bringing to buy from such developers. So as a realtor, you need to understand a session, understand it at a practical level. Understand it at the practical, not what you just basically read online. Understand it at a practical level from a lawyer who understands it. That is what I would really advise. The 15th legal mistake that you should avoid as a realtor is padding deals without authority to do so. Padding deals without authority to do so. That's, for example, a client tells you to sell a property for 20 million and you unilaterally add 5 million to it. And I would advise you not to do that, because there are certain legal implications that follow, especially if it doesn't go down well the way you planned it. So let me rush away from that. Number 16, receiving payments on behalf of clients without authority to do so. Some agents, based on number 15 that I just said, end up going further to give their account so that payments will be made. And this mostly happens to clients who are not resident in Nigeria or physically available, especially those who are resident abroad, right? So you, as a realtor, should know that this is a no-no, especially if you want to truly be professional and stand out as a realtor. This is really important. Number 17, selling lands with freehold and registered survey as a title document. There are basically two types of freehold. There's one as it relates to government acquired land, and there's the other as it relates to a leasehold. You need to understand the differences and understand where there is a reference to it, so that you don't just jump at it. And either way, in two of these basic occasions, none of them is a title document as a title document is designed to be. A freehold is what it is. A title document is what it is. A survey plan is what it is. If you register it, it doesn't translate or make it a title document by legal standards. So you need to understand this basic concept and don't let any developer communicate a different thing entirely to you. That is what I need to say as regarding, and it is very important. And just before we go further to talk about the other legal mistakes that you must avoid, remember, like I said, that I designed a course which I refer to as a Realtor's Law course. In the Realtor's Law course, I discussed extensively on all of these issues. I didn't just discuss the problem, I discussed all of the solutions, discussed the general rules, discussed the exceptions. And these are not just theoretical conversations. These are conversations that I also looked at in real time based on experience in the field of practice across different jurisdictions in Nigeria. So if you really want to be a realtor that wants to sell better, avoid issues, stand out, be an authority, or be seen as an authority, and yes, be an authority, then you want to consider buying this course so that you will truly stand out. And also, when you buy this course, you have access to me for basic legal advisory whenever you need it. I always like to say that every realtor needs a lawyer on speed dial, a property lawyer on speed dial, and I'll give a basic access to that, so that when you have very quick questions you need to ask as a realtor, then I'll be available to respond to you. All right, so let's go to the next one. Number 18, marketing and selling lands with wills as a title document without obeying Nigerian property laws. Now, as a realtor, there are other times that you'd find yourself, because like I said, there are different types of titles and title documents and all of that. So it's not every time you're going to meet a deed of transfer, a deed of assignment, or just the normal deeds that you know. Some other times you're going to have to meet issues of will and all of that. So if you want to truly understand or sell better, or do the right thing whenever the issue of will comes into play, that you need to understand generally probate laws in Nigeria. And I also discussed that in the course. Number 19, marketing and selling properties with legal restrictions. There are certain lands in Nigeria that, by virtue of the Nigerian property laws, legally you are not permitted to sell those lands. And I also discuss this in the course. You should know that as a realtor so that you don't go and sell, you know. Number 20, abandoning the client after receiving your commission. Especially for developers that now exist in Nigeria, there are some of them that they do not fast track, or they get to want to prepare title documents themselves. And some of these companies end up keeping title documents for us as much as 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, right? So I'm basically saying that to say that as a realtor, when you have received your commission, also make sure look out for your clients, ensure that title is transferred to your client. For whatever be the reason for the delay, you should ensure that it is done, because without title being transferred to your client, every other thing is basically transactional, and there are legal implications to that. So you should definitely ensure that title moves from the person that you sold for to the person that you sold to. And the last one, over promising. I understand that a lot of clients actually ask for more than they can pay for, or demand for what more than what is necessary or possible, right? But and for some realtors, they now go overboard and they now get to begin to overpromise so as to close the deal. Certain clients, like I said, there are implications of offer and acceptance, right? So for a client who is truly litigious, they can take you on it and want to enforce the conversations that you think you were just having based on skills of closing the deal, right? So try not to overpromise and know when to draw a line. These are some of the legal mistakes that I've basically put together at this point that you must be aware of as a realtor. And yes, I agree with you that most of these 21 legal mistakes I just discussed with you are a way of me exposing you and making you aware, enlightening you, so that you understand that these are mistakes, right? So it's important, and I would encourage you to get the Realtors Law course, because in the Realtors Law course, you will get to learn at your pace every of these issues I just talked about, one after the other, so that when you are attending to a client, then you are having a conversation with a client, you want to look out for a deal, either independently or with a developer, you definitely will know what to do and know when to say no. There are a lot of developers that we don't sell properties for as a company. There are some of the properties that we have, so they can have like say 5 estates. We can decide to sell 2 and leave the rest because of legal reasons, right? So you need to be aware of such things. So I'm going to quickly read through the 15 parts or episodes of the Realtors Law course, so that you will have an idea of what is inside of the Realtors Law course. In the part 1, I discussed general introduction, importance and role of law in real estate transactions. In part 2, I discussed established ways through which one can become a landowner before you can market and sell for them. Part 3, I discussed legal terminologies and concepts every realtor must know. In part 4, I discussed parties to real estate transactions and who should prepare a title document. In that part, I discussed about 8 types of real estate transactions and the parties that are involved. And in all of these types of real estate transactions, who should prepare the title document in respect of these issues or these transactions. And I discussed that in part 4. Part 5, I talked about what a deed is. So what is a deed? When is a deed mandatory before you can market and sell? There are certain times that a deed is extremely important. You can't sell a property except it has a deed. You need to look out for such occasions, so that importantly you know what a deed is and you know when to demand for it and when it is not a must. Part 6, I talked about power of attorney and all you need to know as a realtor. Part 7, I talked about contract of sale and when it is necessary. Part 8, I talked about legal restrictions, types of land you should never sell and market as a realtor. Part 9, I talked about a deed of lease and sublease, general rules and exceptions that you must obey. Part 10, what is a title document, kinds of title, and how to know a good title document. Part 11, I talked about accession in process, and gazette. Part 12, I talked about assent, wills, and all you need to know as a realtor. Part 13, I discussed how to know genuine properties as a realtor. And then the right legal steps every realtor must obey. Part 14, I talked about certificate of occupancy, governor's consent, and general land status in Nigeria, the issue of freehold, leasehold, and other concepts. Part 15, and the last one, I talked about 21 legal mistakes every realtor must avoid. So if you want to get the Realtors Law course, all you have to do is click the very first link in the description section of this video. The very first link in the description section of this video, or basically reach out to the number showing right on your screen and you will get access to the Realtors Law course. Again, my name is Raymond Ijoma and I'm a real estate entrepreneur as well as a property lawyer here in Nigeria. This video was brought to you by Fortreal Limited, and do it to kindly subscribe if you have not. Turn on the notification as well so that you'll be notified every time I post amazing videos like this one. So through Fortreal Limited, we get to market, sell properties, and basically represent clients for all of their real estate transactions here in Nigeria. So you have interest in any of our services, then of course the numbers to reach out to are also right on your screen. If it's a course that you need, the number to reach out to is also right on your screen, or you use the first link in the description section of this particular video. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.